Yeah, hi there. This is Ashmita from Sources Classes. In today's class, we are going to discuss about a portion that is very much important for the AP examinations. And here we are going to find out the deeper meanings in poetry. Now, this is quite tough. Like many of you don't even understand the normal meanings of poetry when you are given a new poetry all at once, but here we are talking about deeper meanings suddenly. So that's quite a tough nut to crack, but let's see the rules, how we can just understand the deeper meanings in poetry. Now, the first thing that we are going to consider is checking the connotations and the double meanings. So, the easiest way to see what a connotation brings to the poem is to substitute the other words with the same definition or denotion. Like, for example, if the line reads, "This old pair," think how the effect would be different if it were "these two senior citizens." So the meaning remains the same, and only the different pairs of words are different. So this old pair means the same, and these two senior citizens actually means the old pair. Next set of ways through which you can understand the deeper meanings in a poem is applying the free association. Now, here you have to select a couple of important words from the poem. Now, of course, you know a word is important if it shows up several times, right? So, and if it surprises you or if it occupies a key position, like which is close to the beginning or it's like at the end of a line, on a piece of scrap paper or in the margin of the test booklet, write the words that you have chosen. Leave some room around each, like leave some space around each so that you can write down the meanings afterwards. Secondly, what you need to do is concentrate on the word and write down the ideas that pop into your mind. Like when jotting down your ideas, don't bother with sentences or punctuation. Like keep your comments short, just write enough to remind you of the thought. Third way that you should be considering it is reread what you have written. So, uh, yes, if you get some ideas when you read it for the first time, you will definitely get some more ideas if you read it for the second time. Again, if you read it for the third time, you will get much more ideas. So, you see, reading should be a part of your finding out the deeper meanings. The next thing that you should be doing is visualizing. Now, when you are reading a poem, you may visualize or may play a film clip in your head so that you can see the poem. Now, obviously, try to think of that poem in your imagination. You will get all the characters in your mind, you will get to see whatever is happening in the form of an imagination. You try to do it. Let's try to take a look at this poem, which is written by William Wordsworth, and this is "She Dwelt Among the Untrodden Ways." So let me read the poem. She dwelt among the untrodden ways, beside the springs of Dove, a maid whom there is none to praise and very few to love. A violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye, fair as a star when only one is shining in the sky. She lived unknown, and few could know when Lucy ceased to be. But she is in her grave, and oh, the difference to me. So over here, this poem is in the most complicated one ever written, but even so, Wordsworth packed extra ideas into these 12 lines. So these are 12 lines over here in the form of a poem, and all the ideas are packed in these 12 lines by William Wordsworth. So after reading the poem, you have to conjure up the scene in your imagination, just like the way I have told you. While reading a poem, you should imagine all those things in your mind. Now let us see uh, violet by a mossy stone. This is in line number 5, as you can see. A violet by a mossy stone. So over here, the stone's been sitting there for a long time, right? Stones never move. So in your mental picture, make the stone look untouched and permanent. So you can definitely think about it. Visualize the hard rock and the delicate flowers next to each other. Then paint in a sky with just one star. All these things are easy to imagine. So definitely your mind is open. Just keep imagining. Yes, come to this paragraph. At this point, you know that this maid, which was mentioned, we could see in line number 3, a maid meets to the speaker. Lucy is natural, pretty, and unique. She is also dead because she is in her grave. So they are talking about Lucy, who is in her grave. That's line number 11 over here, you can see. A permanent state echoed by the mossy stone. Yes, they were over here, they were talking about a mossy stone that was untouchable. Like we can say it's untouchable means it's pure, and it's like it's not moving also. So like it has stopped, it has ceased means it has stopped. A permanent state echoed by the mossy stone. Her life was fragile as violets are. Like just like a violet flowers, her life was also fragile. Fragile means weak. Okay, fragile means weak. The nature images reinforce the theme that life and death are natural elements of life. So through nature poetry, William Wordsworth has told us about both life and death, which are the natural elements of life. Okay, the single star that is in line number 7, we can see single star. Here you see a single star when only one is shining in the sky. Okay, so the single star elevates the simple girl. So elevates means taking the girl to a higher position. So from a lower pedestal, this girl is taken up to like higher position because she is no more and she is inside her grave. That is why she is a star now, the lone star who is like above all of us. Because she's unique, Lucy can't be replaced. Of course, a person who has died becomes a star, he or she remains in her grave, and of course, no one can be taken into his or her place. Once a person is gone, no one can take his or her place. So, yeah, that's it. How you can identify these things. You can also listen, okay, on the AP exam. You can definitely listen to your own thoughts. Like obviously read it on your own. You cannot read it aloud, right? So read it on your own and try to listen to your mind. Like, okay, so this one is for this. Try to reinforce or change the meaning of certain things and try to determine what can I use, what kind of meaning can we just bring about in the poem. Think about that. Okay, reread it. We are continuing with how we can determine the different like deeper meanings of poetry. So we are going to continue and we are going to consider the next step, that is consider the context and the point of view. So over here, a good way to split the shell of a poem and allow more hidden meaning to spill forth is to consider the context and the point of view. Okay, so obviously, what's the point of view of the poem you need to consider, and what's the context, like reference to what context is it written, and that will definitely help you to know more about the poem, and it will also help you to assume what kind of an idea the poem is trying to say. All right. Now try not to bring rather too much of context in the poem because it will help you to assume things. Okay, it will not help you to understand exactly, but it will help you to assume things. So we may not be knowing whether our assumption is correct or not. So it can be completely wrong, it can be completely correct. So try not to bring that much of context into your thinking, but obviously a little context is required, all right? Next thing that you can consider is the point of view in poetry, which is also important. Now, the first point says if the poem has a speaker, you get his or her point of view. So, if the poem has a speaker in it, then you are getting his or her point of view, okay? If you encounter other characters whose points of view differ from that of the speaker, you get their points of view also. So if you are meeting with the second character apart from the protagonist or the poet or the poetess in the poem, then you are having the other person's points of view also. The third thing that you can consider is the poet may reveal his or her own point of view. So in the poem itself, the poet may reveal his or her own point of view. Like, for example, they have given in Robert Browning's My Last Duchess. For instance, the speaker is a duke. Duke means king who had his wife, the Duchess, murdered because she smiled at everyone equally and didn't appreciate his 900 years old name. So just because she was a duchess and she used to smile the same way with everyone, she was like killed, murdered. The poet conveys the duke's tone of jealousy and pride, and you easily pick up the poet's condemnation of the monstrous speaker. So over here, the poet, if you have read the poem, you would understand the tone of the poem. So even if you consider the tone of the poem, you would understand what the poem is trying to say about the characters. So the other characters in the poem are the Duchess, who appears only in a portrait on the wall, looking as if she were still alive. Quite chilling, right? While I'm reading it, you also run across an implied listener who's visiting the Duke to make arrangements for the Duke's next marriage to the daughter of his employer, the Count. Okay. So the Duke is marrying again after killing his wife, and no one knows about that. And there is another person who is the listener who has come to talk about the marriage. Okay. You can infer much about the Duchess from the Duke's comments. So, whatever the Duke is commenting, the entire poem is about the Duke's comments. Okay, so you will come to know about everything regarding the Duke's behavior, how the Duke was, what the listener was coming for, like what they were talking about in the entire poem from the Duke's comment itself. Okay, and how he murdered, why he murdered his previous wife, that you will come to know from the Duke's comment itself in the entire poem. So we can consider that Robert Browning's My Last Duchess was a dramatic monologue. Okay, dramatic monologue means it was kind of a drama where we had only monologue, like only one person was speaking, and that was the Duke himself. Okay, and through his point of view only, we come to know about everyone's point of view and what actually happened in the poem. So, yes, and lastly, you can bring your own experience to the poem, of course. Okay, a poem, according to many poets, is only partly finished when it reaches the page, like when it reaches the end. It is only partly finished or half finished, okay? Until and unless we as readers provide any kind of reaction to it, it will never get complete. And which includes everything in the reader's life that helps him or her relate to the poem. Of course, if we relate to the poem, then it will add much more value to the poem. So, recalling similar experiences may help you to understand what the poet is getting at. So, this is how you can add your own experience to the poem. Now, one thing that you should be considering is do not try to put too much of own experience into the poem because the poem itself will have a lot of enough evidence it will have to support your interpretation. So try like take care not to include too much of personal experience while thinking about the deeper meanings of the poem. All right. Yeah. So that's it. We are going to continue with the AP exam syllabus again in our next classes. Like there are different chapters which we need to cover up. So let's meet in our next classes.